Saturn has barely introduced us to the themes of courage, self-expression, and initiative of Aries when the station's retrograde on Sunday, July 13th, and begins its journey backwards towards Pisces. Time to face our inner fears, rethink our commitments, and set healthier boundaries. Let's take a closer look and break it down for all 12 signs. My name is Anastasia. I'm a traditional Western astrologer and astrology teacher. I specialize in natal, relationship, predictive, electional, and astrocartography astrology. If you enjoy my work, please take a few seconds to leave me a like, a comment, subscribe, press the notification bell, watch more of my videos to encourage YouTube algorithm to send more views, more people to my channel. You can also say thank you by buying me a tea, a coffee, a croissant. Any token of appreciation is welcome by me. Before we dive in, for those with personal questions, you want me to look at your chart, you have questions about the future, about your relationship, you want to know the best place in the world for you to move to, or the best time to get married, to start a business, etc. Book a reading on my website, anastasia.astrology.com. You can also register for my natal astrology course. It begins in September, and in 3 months we will learn the foundations of astrology, learn about planets, zodiac signs, houses, aspects, phases, retrograde motion, things like that, to help you navigate astrology, understand yourself, and feel more empowered to read charts and to actually build healthier relationships, because it all starts with you. And I'd like to highlight my Saturn in Aquarius candle. I still have a few of those left. Saturn is currently in the sign of its fall in Aries, meaning it may be difficult to get the levels right between doing too much and doing nothing at all. At times we may be very enthusiastic and driven to take on all the projects, and at other times we might feel doubtful and afraid and bullied on some level. Saturn in Aquarius is the candle created in 2023. It captures Saturn in rulership before it left Aquarius and can help you create structure in your life, figuring out how to handle duties and responsibility, how to reach mastery, diligence, find diligence, and reach recognition, as well as rewards for your knowledge. Especially strongly recommended to people born with Saturn in Aries, also Saturn in Cancer and Leo, signs of fall and detriment. If your Saturn is in the 6th, 8th, or 12th houses, this is the choice for you. And a real quick shout out to the Jupiter candles. Look at, they make such a cute pair, I think. So we've had Jupiter Cazimi at the end of June. And so Jupiter Cazimi is the candle that captures the luckiest day of the year. And lunar Jupiter was created 2 days later, a day after the new moon. So it has the moon waxing, separating slightly from the sun, so it's starting to gain light and power to help you manifest. So this one is very lucky, Jupiter Cazimi, and lunar Jupiter is all about manifestation, fertility, relationships with women, and self-expression. So all of that is on my website. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being patient with me mentioning my passion projects. I know you guys are very patient and supportive, so thank you. So Saturn retrograde begins on July 13th and it lasts until November 27th. So we have July, August, September, October, 4 months and a half, right? And it starts at 1 degree 56 minutes of Aries, and then Saturn re-enters Pisces on September 1st, and it travels backwards to 25 degrees of Pisces. So this will affect you the strongest if you have planets between 0 and 2 degrees cardinal signs, Aries, Libra, Capricorn, Cancer, or if you have planets between 25 and 29 degrees mutable signs, Pisces, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Gemini. Because you would have already had one aspect from Saturn, now you're going to get a retrograde aspect, and then you're going to get one final one when Saturn stations direct on November 27th. For example, your girl here has her Venus at the end of Virgo, and I already had Saturn oppose my Venus once, and 2 more are coming, so yay! Wish me luck. I wish you luck. It's going to be great. Saturn will just probably create a lot of responsibility. For example, I have Saturn opposing my Venus in September when my course begins. And of course, teaching, being busy with clients and lessons, of course it suggests that it's going to be a very Saturnian time to grow up, right? Time to take responsibility. So for you, it might be something similar. It might just be reflective of your life getting more serious when Saturn is making that aspect. Let's talk about Saturn retrograde. First of all, what is Saturn? Saturn is the lord of karma. Saturn is the planet connected to duties, responsibilities, boundaries, realism of life, serious structures of life. It is the opposite on many levels of Jupiter, where Jupiter will be, here is this opportunity, here is good luck, here is a gift because you're just worthy of it. Saturn will be like, I'll take this gift until you learn how to clean your room. So Saturn is here to teach us things, right? And sometimes he teaches them by being harsh, but his tough lessons are actually likely to be more important than the gifts of Jupiter, at least in the long run. So we've had Saturn in Aries since late May. Saturn in Aries is potentially making us figure out what is worth committing to, what is worth starting. It's making us figure out how to not give too much and how to not shy away as well at the same time. Because sometimes Saturn in Aries can give us extra enthusiasm to a point that we come across as even like bullying or, you know, too assertive, too aggressive, or it can paralyze us to a point that we're fearful of getting things started. And so now as Saturn is retrograding from Aries into Pisces, you're getting to slow down. You can think of Saturn direct as a construction site. I always find it really helpful. Austin Kopak, my first ever astrology teacher, used this metaphor. So Saturn direct is a construction site. Things are going, you're building something slowly but surely, brick by brick. Saturn goes retrograde, your supplies don't get delivered. The construction slows down, you have to go back, you have to redraw some plans, you find that there is some problem with the foundation. So it becomes this a lot slower time where you are rethinking, you're fixing the holes in the structure, and you realize that you're realizing that you're maybe dove into it too fast. So considering that we're moving from Aries into Pisces, there is this interesting suggestion here that you are meant to connect with your spiritual self, that you know you are encouraged to finish whatever emotional healing that you haven't done. On some level, you're even encouraged to slow down, because Saturn in Pisces sometimes literally reminds you the importance of rest and standing still and smelling the flowers, sleeping, taking naps, as well as a sense of finding community, finding something spiritual and soulful that supports you. If you don't have that, again, might sound like a broken record, but studying astrology could be a great tool to support yourself and to look at the future, because we're gonna always have good and difficult aspects. If you learn astrology, if you know astrology, you can actually deal with those with knowledge and with courage and with patience, because sometimes you can be in the middle of the storm, but if you know when it's going to end, it's better than not knowing, right? Again, with like my Venus-Saturn opposition, Saturn-Venus opposition, it's not like the funnest aspect, but I know that there's two more and then yay, that's it. So there is an opportunity to go within, because when the planet is retrograding, it moves backwards. Instead of just committing to and accomplishing things in the outside world, being assertive, being decisive, we're actually starting to wonder, why did we start things in the first place? What drives us? What motivates us? What fears we still have that are slowing us down? What kind of self-sabotaging behavior is maybe involved? So opportunities to dig deeper, rethink your motivations, rethink your commitments, let go of fears, find some kind of support, right? And of course, setting better boundaries. And that might involve you saying no to certain things. Sometimes it's about saying no, I don't want to do that. No, that's not what I'm interested in. And sometimes that may involve redrawing the boundaries with your family, with your coworkers, with your bosses, and maybe even your neighbors. Some important dates to watch here. On August 11th, Saturn will sextile Uranus, which is part 2 of 3. We've had Saturn sextiling Uranus on April 4th this year, and then one more will happen on January 20th. This is a light aspect because it's a sextile, so it's like the least strongest of our conjunction, opposition, trine, square. Sextile comes last. But it still suggests that there is this ultimate focus on like progress, especially because at this point Uranus would already be in Gemini. So it's like we've had it in April, but that was still Saturn in Pisces, Uranus in Taurus, and now we're actually getting Saturn sextiling Uranus between Aries and Gemini. And Gemini is very progress oriented, very advancement, achievement, breakthroughs oriented. So I think it's an opportunity to rethink, where are you slowing yourself down and where do you need to maybe innovate in your life. September 1st, Saturn returns to Pisces until February 13th, 2026, giving you a chance to finish some of the themes that were introduced by Saturn first entering Pisces in March 2023. So like the final September, October, November, December, January, final 5 months for you to put some finishing touches in the Pisces sector of your chart. And of course, we'll talk about what this means that it goes from Aries into Pisces. And then September 21st is pretty intense as the Sun and Saturn opposition happens. Sun opposes Saturn. So this is Saturn looking at your ideal image, which the Sun represents. The Sun represents your core self, your goal, your identity, which both includes the truth and the mask that you may be wearing, or the goal that you're aspiring towards. And so as Saturn opposes it, a lot of the layers will need to be shed and the truth will be revealed. So sometimes this shows up as a not yet. Sometimes this shows up as a need for compromises, and at other times it can actually be you've done the good work. Maybe now you get to move forward, right? You just have to remain patient and kind of move slowly with this aspect. So we're going to look at the 12 rising signs. If you have personal questions, if you'd like a personal reading, book one on my website and register for my natal astrology course. On there you can also pick up the candles. This is the Jupiter Cazimi. Jupiter Cazimi is decorated with lapis lazuli, and lunar Jupiter is decorated with citrine stone. Both are stones of Jupiter, and both are 4 in number because 4 is the number of Jupiter. So all of that on my website. If you are an Aries rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 1st into 12th houses. And of course, Neptune is already retrograding along the same path. So here you may, with this retrograde, you may experience something will like slow you down, something will encourage you to maybe take a beat. And sometimes it may be issues connected to health that you need to address. Let's say you've been getting colds really often, so you realize that you need to work on improving your immune system, work on boosting your immune system, or maybe there is some kind of conversation you're having with other people and it sort of slows you down and you're like, I didn't realize this is how I am being perceived. So Saturn here is like a way of a reality check, in a way of like you're asking, am I on the right path? Is my health well? Am I happy with how I present myself to the world? Maybe you need to set some boundaries. Maybe you need to rethink your bad habits, especially after September 1st when Saturn returns to Pisces and now continues its retrograde through Pisces. There may be these self-defeating tendencies, these blind spots that you're not addressing, fears, destructive tendencies, even like negative self-talk that needs to be addressed. So on many levels, Saturn going through the 1st into the 12th suggests that what's standing in your way is likely you, and you really need to figure out a good support system, therapy, astrology. Join my natal astrology course. It's a good time for that. People you trust, a mental health counselor, right? Similar to therapists, maybe opportunities to rest. Maybe you need a sangha, like a Buddhist community that supports you. So there is this opportunity to, like, before you commit to things and maybe, you know, show up in the world as this Saturnian responsible leader type of character, something needs to be examined, dusted off, and cleaned up in your spiritual attic. Do share how this resonates. For more guidance, visit my website and book a personal reading or register for my natal astrology course. If you are a Taurus rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 12th into your 11th houses. So when the retrograde begins, it starts to move backwards through your 12th house. And here you may experience some kind of, it may illuminate your self-defeating tendencies. It may reveal secrets, fears. Maybe it's about your need for adrenaline and adventure, and you realize that you're stirring some drama in your relationship because you're not getting an outlet for it. Maybe it's about mental health issues. Maybe it's about bad habits that involve escaping and avoiding some things. There may be opportunities to look at how you handle things that don't go your way or things falling out of your control, and maybe an opportunity to slow down and to take it easy. But ultimately, Saturn will be in your 12th house for a while, really encouraging you to close some chapters, to let go of some patterns. So this retrograde is this kind of time to slow down and rest and reflect. And then on September 1st, as Saturn re-enters your 11th house for the last time, the final 5 months, it draws attention to your dreams as you review your dreams, your community and people around you, who is supportive of you, who you want to take with you to the next level, who you maybe even want to partner up with and work with. So 11th house is about your friendships, right? So there may be some realizations that certain friends are not aligned with you, or certain social pursuits are draining and difficult. And there may be an opportunity to examine your beliefs and maybe realize, because we're looking at like 12th and 11th houses together, maybe there's some type of realization coming up for you where you're realizing that your purpose lies in making the world a better place for others, because that's what like 11th and 12th houses have in common. They're very much other people oriented. So how can you take care of your health? How can you let go of your bad habits to become a better, more plugged in, more generous and involved member of community? Please share how this resonates. For more guidance, visit my website and register for my natal astrology course. I also highly recommend my newest batch of Jupiter candles. Jupiter Kazemi, this one, exalted Jupiter once in 12 years. We're not going to have another opportunity to create candles like this until 2037. So take advantage. If you are a Gemini rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 11th into 10th houses. And here you're experiencing some frustrations, delays, changes, even endings in connection with friends, in connection with large organizations, groups and alliances that you belong to, and getting a chance to reassess your social circle, right? So have you noticed anything happening in the sector of friends when Saturn first entered Aries in late May 2025? So did you maybe get new ideas? So you started a new partnership, or you began a podcast or something, or even met some new people, Or maybe you realize that there's some friction in your existing friendship circle. Maybe it was about networking and connecting with people, like updating your resume, right? Exploring sort of new paths. So now that Saturn is retrograding, you are slowing down. You're realizing that maybe some commitments were too rushed. You rushed into things. Maybe you're realizing that the project that you committed to is not something you're really interested in. Maybe you're realizing that the friendship that felt uncomfortable is actually better to put down that friendship, that it's not going to last. So it can also, honestly, it can manifest as people in your life. Your friends may be struggling or going through a difficult time, and so Saturn retrograde will encourage you to help them, but then also set better boundaries. And then on September 1st, Saturn retrogrades into your 10th house of career, and Saturn has been in your house of career since March 2023. How has that been? But as it returns to your 10th house, you are now looking at your reputation and your career and your professional life, and maybe having to redraw some of the plans you've had, rethink some professional aspirations, right? You may be going to deal with literally some kind of project that you've been working on that didn't quite work out. For example, my Gemini rising friend mentioned using AI at her job and sort of trying to figure out whether you can use AI to create realistic backgrounds. And you can, but it's still a work in progress. Or like even, you know, use AI to create shots of people that are maybe parts of the show. So let's say that's that's something that you're working on, and then when Saturn goes retrograde, there may be an opportunity to like rethink that. Maybe it's not quite working, maybe some adjustments need to be made. So anything from rethinking your relationships, your networking, your network, your connections, to thinking about your job. And I'm also wondering if there is some kind of opportunity here to like think who in your environment is aligned with you and who can help you get to where you're trying to go. So yeah, it's both about relationships, but it's also about your dreams, and something needs to be reviewed, rethought, redone, the usual keywords of any retrograde. If you're looking for more guidance, book a reading on my website or register for my natal astrology course. And highly recommend my Saturn in Aquarius candle while we're dealing with Saturn retrograde, Saturn in the sign of its fall in Aries. This could be helpful. If you are a Cancer rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 10th into your 9th houses. And when Saturn is retrograding through your 10th, there may be frustrations, delays, miscommunications, slowdowns in your professional sector. Many Cancer risings are have been through a lot of things professionally, and like I've heard from some of you that you're tired of lessons and growth, but the growth doesn't stop until you want it to stop, right? So while you're alive, the growth continues. So, you know, maybe something happened, and please share, since Saturn entered your house of career in late May, and it's been there direct for, you know, June, not very long, month and a half, right? But maybe something already started happening in your career house. Maybe you found a new job. Maybe you decided to go for a new career. Maybe you quit your job. There could have been a lot of sudden maybe developments here. And then as Saturn begins its retrograde, you sort of pause and you're like, well, is this really the job I want? Maybe I rushed into quitting my job. Maybe I don't even know what kind of path I want to be on. So opportunities to rethink that. And as Saturn retrogrades into Pisces, your 9th house, on September 1st, you are looking at your beliefs. You are looking at your sort of core principles and your guiding principles, and what is important to you, what is your sort of perspective of yourself and the world. And something may need to be adjusted here, right? With Saturn, it's been in your 9th house since March 2023, How did it affect your house of education, travel, writing, beliefs, and principles? But chances are that you are going to examine some of your tendency to look at the world as a dark place, or to not feel like a main character, right? Saturn is going into Pisces to be like, okay, what do you need to release before it goes into your 10th house, where you can take kind of control of your career and step into the world in whatever way you want to be known for, right? For some people, maybe it's about being a parent and building their family. It doesn't need to be your career, but if it is about career or whatever it is, Saturn goes into Pisces and it's like, maybe you need to go back to school. Maybe you need to let go of self-doubt and thoughts that the world is against you. Maybe you need to figure out what core beliefs, like in Inside Out, what core beliefs, what core memories are not serving you. And so address those, like do a little bit of decluttering in your mental attic. If you're seeking personal guidance, book a reading on my website or register for my natal astrology course to level up your astrological knowledge and lead life with more purpose and meaning. It begins in September and it lasts 3 months. If you are a Leo rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 9th into the 8th houses. So here we're looking at Saturn moving from the house of education, travel, writing, beliefs, principles into the 8th house of debts, loans, connections, shared finances, right? So immediately I'm thinking maybe it's time for you to rethink how you belong with other people, because as it goes, well, 9th house is the house of beliefs, and so there's definitely a sense of slowing down and maybe questioning what is important to you. But 9th house is also connected to legal matters, connected to travel, connected to education. So if in the last month or so you started studying something, or you maybe started applying for a visa or a green card or some kind of document, Saturn going retrograde may slow that down. It may encourage you to redo some of the paperwork. It may encourage you to reapply for things or reach out to people, right? As it goes in your 8th house on September 1st, where you need to clear some things out, right? It's like, I'm sort of thinking of like someone who just got engaged and they want to get married, but then they realize that their previous marriage hasn't officially, the divorce hasn't been like finished, right? So it's like, you're like, okay, let's get married. I'm excited. Let's move to France. And then Saturn retrogrades and you're like, oh no, actually I need to finish this. I need to reach out to my ex-husband, right? And figure things out. So literal sort of redoing of matters around visas, education, like loans, debts, taxes, financial agreements, contracts, and potentially it could be a lot more spiritual, right? As you are sort of thinking of like, what's slowing me down from living abroad or being my best self or going for my dreams. And as Saturn returns into your 8th house in September, you're realizing that it's actually about some spiritual wounds and healing that you still need to do that you haven't quite done. Please share how this resonates. For more help with this transit and for help with finding recognition, mastery, and rewards, pick up my Saturn in Aquarius candle. All of that is on my website, together with bookings and my class that begins in September. If you are a Virgo rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 8th into your 7th houses. So Saturn has only entered your 8th house on May 24th. So maybe you've already noticed some developments around partnerships and joining resources with other people, maybe taking out loans, getting a mortgage, things like that. As Saturn begins its retrograde, some of this will need to be revisited. So quite literally, it might be the time when you're dealing with a delay in negotiation, or you're getting sort of delayed with receiving an inheritance. Maybe you've been applying for a loan and you realize that there are still some papers that you do not have. So there might be some kind of opportunity to redo some of the thing, and then maybe also even question if this is the right path for you. Do you want to get mortgage that you will be paying off for the next 30 years? Or would you rather move to Panama, right? Or France, whatever it is, it might be. So there might be this like slowdown that is in a way a hidden blessing. And then as Saturn retrogrades in your 7th house of relationships on September 1st and until February, this is the final accord of Saturn in Pisces. You've had Saturn in Pisces since March 2023. How did it change your relationship sector? So as Saturn retrogrades into the 7th, you're also having to deal with relationship matters, and maybe this sort of slowdown in like getting a loan or a mortgage actually affects your relationship, or maybe you need to like renegotiate agreements in a partnership. This could be both romantic and business. So matters around like negotiating finances, getting the right compensation, building fair agreements in a relationship, maybe like letting some relationships go or recommitting to some relationships, figuring out like what is truly worth your time and how do you want your life to look, right? Do share how this resonates. If you're if you're looking for help with this transit, Saturn in Aquarius is a good choice. You can find it on my website. On there, you can also book a reading or register for my natal astrology course. Come study with me, Virgo rising. You know you love it. You know you'll be good at it. If you are a beautiful Libra rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 7th into your 6th houses. So Saturn has just entered your 7th house in late May. Didn't have a ton of time here, but maybe it introduced some new beginnings in relationships, some partnerships, some opportunities to set boundaries in relationships or start dating again, commit, right? Start a professional partnership, whatever it might be. As Saturn begins its retrograde, maybe you've dove into something really fast that now you're pulling back from. So maybe you were like, yes, let's start this business together. Let's go for it. And now you're like, actually, I'm not sure. Because as Saturn retrogrades into your 6th house of everyday work, you still have some work from the past to finish. You have some commitments to take care of. You maybe even have some health issues to address. Now, this could also be about your partner. If you are in a relationship, Saturn retrograding in the 7th could be maybe they're going back to fixing some kind of health issue, or they're questioning where they want to be and they're feeling confused, and so in turn that puts a pressure on your relationship. Having to figure out and set better boundaries in relationships around everyday duties is also quite likely here. You shouldn't ever underestimate how important it could be to have clear practices around maintaining your world, right? And cleaning and organizing and doing laundry. And so Saturn retrograding from the 7th into the 6th could be like, okay, you're ready for this new beginning. You're ready to move in together, organize your life, figure out who does what, or you're ready to take this next step and start a business. Maybe you also need to clear your space and let go of the old business, right? Yeah, but also some issues connected to health. How has Saturn in Pisces since March 2023 affect your health, affect your everyday life? Have you felt more busy? Have you dealt with any aches and pains? Saturn retrograding and coming back to Pisces for one last time between September 1st and February 2026 is your final opportunity to kind of get it all organized and done. Highly recommend my Jupiter Cazimi candle for good luck. This is a once in 12 years exalted Jupiter Cazimi. We just had it in late June. We're not going to have it until 2037. So definitely check that out for a good measure of good luck. If you are a beautiful Scorpio rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 6th into your 5th houses. So Saturn has just gone into your 6th house in late May. And maybe you've noticed a busier workload. Maybe you've noticed more heaviness around duties and around handling everything. Maybe you've noticed health matters already popping up for you. As Saturn retrogrades, you're getting a chance to slow down a little bit. So on some level, your busy workload, if you've already been dealing with that. Sorry, I'm just trying to fix. My microphone keeps sliding in. Okay. Maybe the busy workload slows down and you're actually getting to take a break, go on vacation, and forget about it between September and February when Saturn retrogrades into your 5th house. Maybe it's the time when you're setting better boundaries around health. Maybe you are rethinking work matters as well, right? Some kind of changes in your work life are possible as you are realizing whether the work you're doing is aligned with you. It's interesting because Saturn then in September retrogrades back into your 5th house, and the question becomes, am I enjoying what I'm doing? Is there enough pleasure, and how do I need to be structured around pleasure? Is there enough sex in my life? Is there enough time with my child, right? 5th house is all about joy. And so when Saturn is retrograding here, it might remind you that you need more joy and that you need to be more structured about it, that you need to be more disciplined about the things that you want. So it's all about like organizing your everyday life, health, your work, in order to have more time to be with your kid, be a parent, be happy in a relationship, and even have time for creative pursuits. For more guidance, book a reading on my website or register for my natal astrology course. It begins in September, and I would love to see you there. If you are a Sagittarius rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 5th into your 4th houses. So Saturn entered your 5th house in late May, and it's about to travel backwards, right? So if you've noticed some type of focus and maybe certain heaviness in your romantic life around the question of children, around the questions of pleasure, maybe even some kind of slowdown in your romantic relationship where you like hit a roadblock and hit a dry spell, as Saturn retrogrades, you will get a chance to rethink whether you are even pursuing the right things. Let's say you'll question whether you are with the right person or not. If you're feeling uninspired and you've been sort of struggling over some kind of creative project, this could be a time to also review that and either come up with like a new approach or let go of a project, right? Or maybe look back at the old pursuits and old passions that used to get you excited. If it affects your relationship with your children or your child, maybe you're also setting better boundaries there and figuring out how to give your child the better life, or like what needs to happen in order for you to become a parent, right? Like this could be an opportunity to like freeze your eggs or try IVF or do something else connected to children. But some type of, a need to find inspiration in all things joyful is highlighted. And then on September 1st, Saturn returns to Pisces, your 4th house of home, family, living situation. Saturn has been in Pisces pretty much since March 2023. And so Saturn retrograding here suggests that you're having to look at your home, family, living situation. So maybe, again, if there are some issues in relationships and in parenthood with children, maybe Saturn retrograding in the 4th is an opportunity to move or an opportunity to expand your home or knock down some walls, right? Maybe it's an opportunity to set better boundaries with family that is too involved in your romantic life. Maybe it's a chance to look at your childhood and the wounds that you haven't processed, the behaviors you have learned, the patterns that are still haunting you, and let something go. So it's an interesting transit. I think it has the potential to be deeply personal and deeply insightful. For more, book a reading on my website. You can register for my natal astrology course. Highly recommend my Jupiter Cazimi or Lunar Jupiter candle. These both capture your chart ruler in the sign of exaltation. Jupiter Cazimi, exalted Jupiter, once in 12 years, not going to get it until 2037. So you might want to jump on it while I still have some. For the beautiful Capricorn rising, Saturn is retrograding from your 4th into the 3rd houses. Immediately, something needs to be said, maybe in your relationships with your family. Something needs to be rethought. So Saturn has gone into your house of home, family, living situation in late May, and it may have introduced some action. Maybe you've decided to move, or you've, sometimes Saturn is not the most like, it's not like excitement about moving, but maybe there was some kind of heaviness, like you were told that you have to move out, right? And you started looking for a new place, or maybe there was some kind of responsibility introduced with family, or some type of duty involving your parents. And so as Saturn goes retrograde, you're getting a chance to rethink that. You're getting a chance to set better boundaries. And because then in September it moves backwards into your third house of communication and siblings and neighbors and community, it sort of feels like there is an opportunity to communicate about things and be honest about things. And so maybe you're even getting a chance to examine your beliefs in relationships with family and think that, you know, things don't always have to be like, you don't always have to be the most responsible one. You can ask for help. You can lean on other people. Maybe there is an opportunity to do some kind of like logistical work and refile, reapply for things, get permits for something. Like if Saturn retrograde in the fourth house is the roadblock connected to building a pool. As it retrogrades in the third, you're like, okay, what can I do? Who can I talk to? How can I problem solve this? But definitely opportunities to talk, maybe even opportunities to sort of like release the past and let go of like fears and frustrations, because as a Capricorn rising with Aries being your fourth house, you're likely someone who grew up in a very like active, combative, competitive type of environment. And so Saturn entering here may sort of create even more heaviness around that and frustration around that. And so use your words. Use your ability to maybe do therapy, problem solve, ask for help to get through it and move on to the other side. And if you need help, Saturn in Aquarius is your chart ruler in the sign of rulership. This was captured in 2023. I still have a couple of left, not a ton. And it's really good for navigating the retrograde and the more difficult Saturn in its fall, where it's either everything or nothing. Saturn in Aquarius is a lot more structured, diligent, good for reaching mastery, finding recognition and success. Find it on my website. On there, you can also book a reading or register for my natal astrology course that begins in September. If you are an Aquarius rising, Saturn is retrograding from your third into your second houses. So here it feels like, so first of all, Saturn went into Aries in late May this year. So have you noticed any developments when it comes to business, schedule, siblings, neighbors, community, skills, hobbies? So Saturn retrograde might encourage a review of that. If you dove into some kind of project, if you joined a new walking group with people in your neighborhood, or you committed to a business, or you sort of got excited about something, Saturn here may encourage you to slow down. There may be there may be a realization that you're not quite ready yet, that you need to learn a little bit more, that there's some exams you need to take, that maybe there are some commitments that you still have. There may be an opportunity to have some serious conversations and even examine relationships with siblings and neighbors. If you realize that some of the commitments to siblings and neighbors feel heavy, or some of the, maybe even needs they have feel difficult for you. And then as Saturn returns to Pisces for the final 5 months on September 1st, it completes the chapter started in March 2023 in your financial sector. So how has Saturn in the house of money and values been for you since March 2023? So Saturn here makes you look at your priorities. And so it could be the time when you're making deliberate choices about how to spend money. It may be the time when you are not just thinking about money, but like you're thinking of what's worth your time and your energy. And if we're talking about Saturn about to spend 3 years in your third house, which could be at the time of, well, like 2.5 years, it could be the time of writing a serious novel or building a business or working on a partnership with your sibling, right? as Saturn retrogrades in the second house, you will be wondering whether you have enough money, whether you have enough patience, whether you have enough desire to actually commit to those things. And so Saturn retrograde in the third could be a great opportunity. Saturn retrograde in the second, when it's from September 1st until November 27th, it will be retrograding in your second, could be a great opportunity to consult a financial advisor, to research some investments, to figure out your priorities, and to set some better boundaries, maybe even boundaries around money and how you spend your money and how many people try to claim your money. Highly recommend my Saturn in Aquarius candle. I still have a couple of these left. This is Saturn in the sign of rulership in your first house, co-present with Venus. So really good for being diligent, steady, determined, and good at reaching goals, versus we will have Saturn in the sign of its fall in Aries for the next 2.5 years, and you may really benefit from a stronger Saturn. Find it on my website. You can also register for my natal astrology course or pick up a personal reading on there. Last but not least, if you are a Pisces rising, Saturn is retrograding from your second into your first house. So here you are rethinking your finances, your priorities, maybe realizing that you need to set better boundaries around how much you spend, maybe how quickly you spend, right? With Aries in your second house, you may be quite martial with spending money. You want something, you go for it, right? So Saturn in the second can actually bring some kind of delays, some kind of turnarounds where not as much of your money is available, or there is some kind of restriction financially. So you're starting to become more diligent and more serious with spending. And then as Saturn returns into Pisces on September 1st, you are thinking of how your investments reflect your goals, and maybe realizing that you need to kind of dedicate more time to your health, that maybe you need to commit to working on being a better version of yourself, that maybe you need to invest in your passions and your gifts. So yeah, Saturn retrograding from the second into the first could be an opportunity to like rethink investments, figure out finances, but also maybe recommit to your health and recommit also to who you are in the world. Saturn has been in your first house since March 2023. How did it change you? Did it bring more duties, more responsibilities, more pressures around health? And so this is kind of like the final opportunity to set things straight. So you may actually see a lot of storylines that got started in March 2023 coming full circle. For example, my boyfriend got injured in March 2023 and he got his first surgery in 2023. And he might be getting his second surgery at some point soon. So that would be a very like bookend. So do share what this is for you. I highly recommend my lovely Jupiter Kazemi candle for you guys. This is Exalted Jupiter, which is a once in 12 years transit. We're not going to get it again until 2037. I captured it in late June, and I have these candles. They're not going to last very long, but this could be very lucky, very opportune, very positive influence in your life, and Jupiter is your chart ruler, so it's perfect for you guys. Pick it up on my website, book a reading on there, or register for my natal astrology course. It begins in September, and it's going to be amazing. I hope to see you there, and thank you for watching. Thank you for being here and supporting my work with likes, comments, booking readings, whatever you do. I am grateful. Namaste. Please subscribe to my yoga channel if you haven't yet. It's called Anastasia Does Yoga. And I'll see you soon. Bye.